delighted to be joined today by Dr. Garry Vermaas, Institutional Director of STONEPILE Construction College, our academic partner across the Advancing Prefabrication series of events. So thank you so much for joining me today and taking the time to speak with us, Garry. We really appreciate it, and certainly looking forward to uncovering a little bit more about STONEPILE and obviously the initiatives that you're working on in the higher education space with our audience. But before we do go too far into that, I've heard quite a bit about yourself as an industry leader anyway, Garry, and certainly for those of the audience that don't already know you, perhaps it'd be a great place to start if you could just give us an introduction to who you are and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
That'd be great. Thank you, Nicole, so much for having me today. I'm super excited to be here talking with you about this topic. So, you know, I grew up in construction. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father all were in construction, and I was supposed to go in and be a mason. And my father said, hey, you're pretty smart, so you should go to college. So when I was in high school, I went to my guidance counselor and I said, I want to go to college. I had never expected to go. And she said, sure. And I said, what do you want to study? And I said, I want to study construction. She looked in her big book and she's like, well, there's no place to study construction. You have to go be a civil engineer. So I went to Lehigh University to be a civil engineer. I studied civil undergrad and civil and structure. Then I went on and got my master's degree in structural engineering. And then I went from there to Columbia University in New York and did my PhD in engineering mechanics. So I fell in love with the whole engineering construction world. From there, I started a firm, an architectural firm, architectural engineering firm that was later bought out, or I sold that later on to a 4,000 person engineering firm out of Canada. And then in 2009, a couple of my partners and I, friends of mine, got together and we started Base 4. So Base 4 is an architecture and engineering firm. We do architecture, structure, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, lighting, fire protection, fire alarm, interior design, renderings, all in-house. And we have an incredible team of about 200 to 300 workers, depending on the year. And we've got offices kind of around the globe. We have offices in India, Republic of Georgia, Dominican Republic, and through the US. Largely what we work on is hotels, hospitality, and also the multifamily sector as well. And yeah, so we are excited and we do great work. And the last 2 years, we've spent most of our effort in the world of IC, industrialized construction. And so we went around the world. I met with every GC, CEO, anyone that would meet with me, spent time talking to them about the world of IC and trying to figure out, you know, how is the construction world broken and how are we going to fix it? And that's really what led us to STONEPILE Construction College. You know, we had a passion to fix the industry. And yes, we can fix it from the design side, and we can talk more about that from the fragmentation side and the product chain side. But also, we don't have the right people coming into the industry every day. We are not attracting that talented youth, non-traditional learners, or even traditional learners coming into the sector. And it didn't make sense. You know, it didn't make sense to me that you could go and get a bachelor's degree in communication, but you can't get a bachelor's degree in construction. Yes, construction management, but that's slightly different. You can get an associate's degree in construction, and there were no degrees that we had in prefabricated, modular, volumetric modular, or industrialized construction. So that's why we launched STONEPILE, with just the giant need to change the industry. It drove us to start a college. We are now authorized by the state of Tennessee, being accredited by the DEAC, Distance Education Accreditation Committee, and we're just excited. I mean, we've been doing this for about a year and a half. We're getting a lot of great partners and inspiration from around the industry.
No, I'm excited to find out more about it. I think you've touched upon so many different things there. And like you said, you know, you did better than I did in terms of getting into the industry. I was certainly a testament to one of those people that just fell on my feet. You know, I kind of found my way to construction, fell in love with it, and especially IC, you know, certainly in the last 4 years, I've definitely got the bug. So it makes sense to me sort of why you're doing this. But I suppose in terms of looking at that skill set then, you know, actually, like we've seen, the construction industry has come a very long way just in the last sort of decade in terms of what skills you need to be in construction and, you know, working now to that level and understanding, you know, what it is to to be in construction and what construction means. I mean, for you, how is that reflecting in the actual programs that you've got going through and the experiences your students are having? You know, what do you see as the core skills that we need to be educating our students coming into construction now to really resonate with the industry as it is today and as it will be in, you know, the next 10, 20 years?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, the construction industry has always been dominated and run by non-traditional learners. And so non-traditional learners covers a big area, but usually a lot of us that didn't really like school very much, you know, because we didn't understand how it fit together practically. My wife and I actually have 12 children. We have 10 adopted children. We have 3 from China, 6 from the Philippines, 1 from India, and 2 biological, between the ages of 8 and 21. And I would say the majority of my children are not traditional learners. And so, you know, when we approach construction, you have to understand we are going to bring in a whole bunch of non-traditional learners who learn through doing, learn through seeing. And those are the people that are geniuses. I mean, the men that I worked with 30, 40 years ago on the field that were incredible masons, incredible carpenters. They were just some of the most intelligent people in the world, but they weren't the book, you know, necessarily the traditional learners that college wants. You know, in order to go to a traditional higher education, you have to fit the mold. They do not do anything to reach out to non-traditional learners at all. They don't care. And they've been telling us a lie for 30 years. Construction is dirty. Construction is for those people that don't want to go to college. Construction is for those people that can't afford college. Those are all just incredible lies. Everyone that I know in construction, every plumber, electrician, everyone I know is making more money than the people that went to college and ended up in middle management, right? We all know that secret. So what we're doing at the program is, listen, we're not using the, you know, if you go to any college, you and I went to college, right? And what happened? You went to a lecture, the old professor got up, he or she spewed a whole bunch of stuff. They told you to read the textbook, most likely the one they wrote. Then you had to regurgitate that information on homeworks and exams. Even in engineering, work the problems and regurgitate. You know, nowadays, we don't need to memorize information. You don't need to know the capital of Alaska. You can find it on your phone instantly. So we need to train people how to utilize how to find the right information. So we developed a 6 touch point curriculum and how we train our students. We have no lectures at STONEPILE. There is no one getting up pontificating about you know, construction. We've got incredible textbooks that teach you how to be a tradesman, right? We were talking about architecture design. We're talking about building codes. We're talking about engineering mechanics. We're talking a lot about products, which is a huge part. And we're talking about manufacturing, which leads you into IC. So you take these like kind of 6 key parts of construction and we're giving the student all of the information. Anyone that comes out of STONEPILE, man, they're going to be totally ready. And we already have placed some of our students. We have 100% placement rate already, and they're killing it. So we're excited about that. I hope that answered your question.
It does, yeah. And it sounds like there's a practical component, right? I think we talk about it all the time, you know, especially at this type of event when we're talking about IC, we say the big gap is that people design a building in a silo and they don't know how to put that building together. And DFMA, you know, all of what we're doing now is trying to connect that, and we're seeing that convergence in the industry. How's that playing through in your practical components of your learning? You know, how are you working with industry to bridge that gap and like you say, make it less about people sat in a lecture just learning from a book, learning from theory, and actually seeing and really engaging, I suppose, with the industry itself?
Yeah, each semester, the undergraduates have a practicum class where they have to be part of a construction project, where they have to go to the site, they've got to take pictures, they have to write, we teach them how to write a site report, they have to interview the contractors and the subcontractors. So we're teaching them soft skills as well, managerial leadership, you know, how to work with people. We have a servant leadership model, you know, really learning how to encourage people. We have values, we talk a lot about values, so they know how to, you know, go into the field. I mean, nowadays, construction is basically run by 50 and 60-year-old man babies that are all like, you know, super emotional, don't know how to control their emotions, busting out, you know, emails with all caps. This is unacceptable. I mean, it's ridiculous. The way our field runs it's embarrassing, actually. And we need to get back to, you know, people having some soft skills and to be able to communicate without yelling, right? So we're teaching our students how to do that. again, we have a lot of videos. There's a lot of video information out there, you know, that our students can watch, so they really are seeing how it's done. The textbooks are all about tradesmen. They're basically training, so they're learning how to almost be a tradesman. They're watching the thing go. They're learning managerial. They're learning the codes and the architectural side, the engineering mechanics, the structure, whether the flow. So we're piecing the products and the manufacturing. We're piecing all those things together. And so they come out with a toolbox. Of course, they can't memorize all the products out there. They can't memorize all the factories, but they're going to know how to find them, how to talk to them, how to figure out how to go to their website, how to pick out their specs, and then how to apply that. Because the biggest problem in construction right now is that everybody's so focused on their little piece, we don't have anybody focused on the whole process. And we are teaching our students how to be focused on the whole process, so that's where we're going to get the biggest revolution right now. Not if we design a bricklaying robot, okay, that might be cool, but that's not where we're losing our time necessarily. Our time is being lost over this huge process with all of these players with no cohesion, total fragmentation, either in the design, the working, the product supply chain. There's so many players and such a mess that we're not seeing any advancement. And that's what we're teaching the students, to understand that whole process and think about how to revolutionize that process.
Yeah, and it makes sense. You know, we've always said when we're changing minds, the people you start with are the people that are open to this, the new minds coming into the industry, and let's get them thinking like that to do so. But like you alluded to at the start, you know, there's one thing us trying to do this as an industry, you know, putting that out there and doing this internally, but actually we need the help of higher education, we need the help of schools, we need the help of counsellors, you know, to actually realise that there's a different opportunity in construction. How are you sort of trying to get that message out there? How are you working with those people to really change that dichotomy? I mean, I grew up in a world where, hey, you stick a hard hat and boots on and you know, you go out onto a job site and that's construction, right? And you put bricks together. I still get laughed at when I come into the US, you know, I'm going through customs or whatever, and people say to me, hey, what are you doing here? And you know, I say, well, I'm in construction. And people look at me and they're like, you? Construction? A woman? And you're in heels and you know, and they just can't quite grasp that. And I think it's a bigger picture, right, that we need to change. But how, you know, how are you doing that, and what type of reception are you getting at the moment from the schools and the counsellors to really help change that perception?
So a great question. Construction typically has been fueled by construction families like mine, right? There's construction families across the world, across the US, and they're the ones fueling, because they see it, they grow up, they love it, and they want to go into construction, they understand it. But outside of construction families, man, there is a huge gap. And you think about the first line to the students in high school is are the counselors, the career counselors. And if you want to talk about a group of people that have no idea about construction, that is them. There are 60,000 counselors in America that represent the 2 million graduating students every year. Those 60,000 counselors need to be educated. So we are sending out newsletters once a week, educational newsletters, every one of the 60,000 counselors. Not all of them are opening them, but we're getting quite a good open rate on our newsletters. They're all on our blog on STONEPILE. And we're trying to introduce these guys to what construction is. Hey, your students, first of all, we want the non-traditional learners, the ones that you right now are just sending to community college because you don't know what to do with, right? We want them. Our tuition is so low that we can take, you know, that anyone can afford it, really working a part-time job, and we're going to match federal and state grants. We're willing to match the grants that you get. So if the student has earned that, we can bring that in. So we're going to the counselors and we're explaining what a life in construction looks like. You know, the coming building information modeling, the future of AI, leadership. Really, you know, construction in America is a $1.4 trillion a year industry. In the world, it's a $13 trillion a year industry. There are so many jobs in this industry. From, you know, you could work at a plumbing supply store, you could work in an interior design store, you could work on the job, you could work project manager, you could be a foreman of an electrical crew. There's a million jobs, and I guarantee for every personality we can find a job. And for the people that would normally just go, you know, we're not targeting the people that are going to Harvard on a full ride, right? They have their career path set out for them. and they've done a great job, and God bless them. We're going after the people that would get stuck in community college or stuck in some state school and get lost. They get lost. They don't know what to do. We bring them into STONEPILE. We're showing them everything. We're working with them. We're helping them with their personality and figuring out the perfect job. I guarantee they're going to have no debt when they graduate. And also, we go every semester. So we class three semesters a year. They graduate with a bachelor's degree in 2 years, 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And they will come out with no debt, and they'll get a job starting $70,000, $80,000 a year, or somewhere in that range. And they'll be doing much better than their counterpart. So we're going after the counselors, and we're saying, you need to do a better job educating your kids. Again, I believe higher education has been lying to the world for 30 years about construction because they don't know. They look down on construction. It's dirty, work boots. It's ridiculous, actually. It's insulting. Now, the last thing is, one of the biggest things that we got to solve in construction is the amount of women. There is only about 7% of the construction world consists of women, and based on my experience, I haven't seen 7%. So, and I think when you have an industry that's run by all men, you're not going to have innovation. You just won't, right? And that's why we are really, I think, as an industry, struggling. We need to get those numbers up to 20, 30% women. And right now we're writing articles. We're going to the counselors. We're saying this is the ideal career path for a non-traditional learning woman. I mean, it really is. It's incredible. From any background, and they can come in. And then also we've got programs in the prisons. We've been meeting with the United States prisons, and they love it. And what's great about that is construction is one industry in the world that we will hire felons, or that the people, ex-convicts. We're okay with that because we're like, hey, we don't care. It's a pretty non-judgmental place to be. We don't really care what you look like, who you are, as long as you can do your job. Yeah. It's a very results-oriented field, and so we're getting a lot of great traction in the prisons as well.
No, I hear you, and I'm completely, being one of those women sat in that room, I often get asked, how does it feel? And one of the things that we've definitely seen at all of our advancing prefabrication conferences, whether it's, Mass Timber, whether it's the advancing prefab event, whether it's PrefabConnect, we see such diversity in the room. For you, why do you think IC plays such a role in increasing diversity and encouraging, a lot of that change and a lot of that diversity to happen within the industry?
I mean, IC is a necessity. Construction costs have gone up 5% a year for the last 10 years. And at this point, it costs more money to build a house or build an apartment than most Americans can afford. It doesn't make sense, right? You can't have a construction industry producing a product that over 50% of our country can't afford. So that, the cost of building a house, $150 a square foot, that's probably a low number. The average American can't afford that. So IC is the solution to this problem. And if you look at the industry, it's so incredibly fragmented. You have, even from the design, you've got the architect and the mechanical engineer and the civil and the landscape. Then you get the GC. The GC just hires subs. You've got subs for everything, right? Then you get into inspection. Then you try to order a product. And for example, the rep sells to the manufacturer sells to the rep sells to the sub sells to the GC, and the GC sells it to the developer. That product's been marked up 4 times by the time that you actually get it. And so you could go, if it's a light, you could go buy that same light for half the cost in Home Depot yourself. So it doesn't make sense. The whole process is broken, and we're not able to keep raising costs. No one will buy the product. Yeah. IC comes in and we start addressing these issues. Unfortunately, everybody is addressing the issue that they're at, right? So we still have fragmentation. So that's why we're not seeing we're in the 4th industrial revolution, and I would say the job site has missed them all. since the first one, and there's a reason. It's because of the fragmentation. So I believe STONEPILE, you need we don't have a dog in every fight. We're overseeing the whole process, so we can kind of be the neutral center, saying, hey, we all got to come together as a team. Yeah. And we all need to still make money. We got to figure out, but we have to team up and build some conglomerates so that we can have some feedback loop in order to do that. But IC is 100% necessary to drop the cost. because that is the goal. I would say the quality of construction is relatively good. We are working really well on the LEED standards and the environmental, and that's coming along really nicely. But the cost is 100% the thing that has to change. And that's what STONEPILE is all about. We are all about construction costs. And if you could find any other university in the world that's talking about construction costs, I'd be excited to meet them. But every engineer, every architect, anyone that comes out of college, every construction manager, the one thing they know nothing about, construction cost, because it's never talked about. And so that's the number one focus, is how are we going to lower construction costs? How are we going to get back to $100 a square foot for a multifamily building? How are we going to do that? That is the challenge, and that's what we are super committed to making happen.
Yeah, and we, let's face it, we've still got a way to go, right? A couple of years back, we saw a lot of people talking about lower costs, faster construction, when it comes to prefab and modular. And I think we've come to a point now where we are being much more realistic about that. That is definitely possible. In the future, when we get this right, we'll see those costs come down. But right now, what we're seeing is cost neutrality, cost certainty is definitely the win that we're seeing. But why do you think that is? What more do we need to do to get to that point where realistically I see prefab, modular, offsite construction, whatever word you use for it, is actually going to realize some of those cost savings rather than just having cost neutrality?
Well, I think it's expectation is the number one. Like, in other words, everybody came out there and they said faster and cheaper, right?
Yeah.
And then they realized, wait a minute, the industry's still moving. There's lots of money flowing. How about just faster? Let's keep our prices ready. Like, why would we cut? And so you don't have that expectation of, I'm talking about trying to build something at $100 a square foot. That's a 40% cut. We have to get there. I'm not going to be everybody's best friend. They're going to be like, wait, what, are you crazy? Why would we cut that out of our margins when people are willing to pay? You have to get there, and it will. Just like TVs. Same thing with TVs. You think about years ago, before the flat screen TV came out, we all paid an enormous amount of money for a TV. Now, if you spend over $500, you'd be crazy, right? Or $300, whatever the TV's at. And that's really where the expectation has to go. The reason the costs are still up there is because people can still get it. And so there is an incentive. Someone has to drive this and say, hey, we have to lower construction costs. And it's coming. You can see it coming because developers, and we see it now with COVID even more, developers are going to stop developing when they can't get rents that make sense, when jobs don't pencil. And we see it with hotels now. Hotel industry is dead because the jobs aren't penciling. So everybody's working their way out of a job. They're destroying the industry, hoping that the prices will go up. So someone will. I mean, that's the way capitalism works, right? Adam Smith, laissez-faire, the invisible hand. Someone's going to come in and figure out how to build it for $100 a square foot, and they're going to win. 100%. The reason that people aren't building cheaper all goes back to the fragmentation. The industry is too fragmented. Modular, even modular, volumetric, people selling the boxes only care about the boxes. They don't have the trucking, they don't have the craning, they don't have the design, they don't care about any of that because they're selling a product. Therein lies the problem in the industry. People have to come together, and we have to sell buildings as a product, just like they do cars. You think about Ford, they've got engineers, they've got architects, they've got designers, they've got inspectors, they've got the whole thing. They even have the service center to fix the car. One company sells you a car. That's where we need to go in our industry. Katera tried to do it. And loaned all kinds of money from SoftBank, right? Billions of dollars, and stumbled out the gate. They as far as I can see. But that is the direction we need to go. We have to get to a conglomerate situation where people are teaming up to be one company to deliver a product that is sold as a product, not as a process.
Yeah, and we've definitely learned a lot from those situations. I think this year we have seen some failures, some sort of companies that we thought were going to do things and didn't manage to do things, and actually it's almost been like it's highlighted a lot of lessons around productization, localization, and the supply chain. I think one of the big buzzwords or themes, or certainly focus of this year, has been supply chain agility and the way that we work together and we come together. And I think you hit it on the head, right? We need people to start changing minds, to be that voice, to bring people together. But we also work in a fragmented industry. We work in an industry where actually there's a lot of traditionalists who don't want to step out of their lane. You say productization and they go, we don't build products, we build buildings, we build projects. And there's a lot of work we've got to do of changing minds before we even get there. I mean, what advice do you give, not just to your students to be that voice of change, but to others in the industry who are changing minds and trying to do that? I mean, what do we need to do as an industry to actually change minds and get people on this train with us?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I personally am an engineer and an architect, run an architectural firm, and I would say that my group of people, engineers and architects, are probably the worst offenders in the industry. They're not great. They have no incentive to make anything faster or better. It's all CYA. It's all hourly. Everything is separate. Everything is a la carte, and there's no inspiration for them to do things faster or better. No incentive. Then you look at the inspectors, the building. They have no incentive to inspect something faster. They're just there to protect the public. So you got, sandwiched on both sides of this miserable process are two groups of people that are driving it in a way that nobody cares about or has any incentive. I won't say care. No one has incentive to make it better, faster, right? Cheaper. It has to be done cheaper. 100% we have to do cheaper. So my inspiration is, the way I inspire people is, it only takes a small group of people to start a revolution, and they have to stand up. And they're going to say, we got to fix the whole process. That's what we're doing at STONEPILE. That's what I've done at Base 4. That's why every day I get a phone call or a LinkedIn message from some random person around the world that sees a podcast like this and says, I'm on board. And so we're pulling together that renegade group of men and women that, say, you know what, I'm in. Let's do something different. And then it's only going to take that group. We are already, Base 4, selling buildings. We're out there selling buildings at a very low cost, packaging it all together, delivering it on time, with our partners that have factories. We put together a couple partners and done the conglomerate thing, and that's what we're teaching about in the STONEPILE. So all it takes is a couple people to really turn this revolution in. Once people see it, and they touch it, and they feel it, and they understand it, and they see the bottom line, everybody will follow suit. It won't be as hard as we think it will be. I don't believe.
Even in the last 5 years, we've been bringing groups together, and it has grown massively. I know that I'm in a very sort of maybe privileged position in the fact that I speak to people every day who, just like me, are champions of this. We want this to be the norm, but I'm also very aware that that's what a pin drop in the ocean of the industry right now, right? That's not representative of construction, but it's getting there. And actually, I do believe this year in itself, for all the disruption it's caused, there has been some good come of it, in the sense that we realise we need to change. The day that we shut down the job sites and everyone had to jump on Teams or jump on Zoom,
yeah,
you would have never have thought that you'd have got the whole industry working on a computer, right? And even that in itself, that's just underlined the need for change. I mean, for you personally, what are you going to take from this year to move forward? How do you see this actually impacting positively on our industry and encouraging, the need for change?
But the great thing about this year, COVID really challenged the higher education. If there is any mafia left in America, it is the higher education. It is a good old boys club, and they are stealing people's money. And they are finally, the curtain got pulled back on them this year. And believe me, the university world the cost does not make any sense anymore for what people are paying and what they're getting. And so I think this year has done a great job of opening up people's eyes to say, hey, I don't need to go to college. That's not where the learning's happening. That Socratic method that's 2,000-year-old no longer applies. Right? I think so. That's been the exciting thing about this year, is it's really opened up people's eyes to online, colleges, and getting to see new ideas. So I think that's great. I do also think that people are now ready to think differently. Like I said, you think about Amazon. One guy started selling books online, and now he's changed the way we all shop. Everybody in the world shops differently because one person started selling books. Over 10 years. That's really what we need to see. We need to see kind of an Amazon type of revolution in construction. And I think everybody's ready for it now. I think COVID has gotten people ready. They're like, yep, it's done. We got to stop. At first it was cheaper and better. Then the people just said, or cheaper and faster. Then it's like, oh, it's faster. It's cost neutral. Everybody gave up. Like we all like, oh, it's about the same, but it's great quality, you know. And now, you know, like no one, people like pointed and said we're going to go there, and then they said, we're just going to go here, and that's okay. That's the problem. Expectations, motivation, excitement. Really, that's what we're trying to drive into the STONEPILE students and say, hey, this is going to be an unbelievable opportunity in the next 10 years. I mean, there is going to be no sector as ripe for revolution as this sector is right now. I think, to me, it's unbelievable. It's exciting. It's like knowing that, it's like you have a chance to buy Amazon at $3 a share. That's really where we're at. And we're waiting for some of those companies to come together, pull together. We're seeing it on the base 4 side. And man, it's pretty awesome, actually. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we've seen it with the venture capitalists, right? You know, it's the perfect opportunity for productivity and to change productivity, to invest in tech and bring that up. And I think, you know, certainly we've not really touched upon this yet, but from a STONEPILE perspective, you are doing that. You're not just bringing new talent into the industry with your bachelor's degrees and sort of educating, you know, people on construction. A lot of your sort of other programs, I believe you've got a master's and sort of above to really allow people to become innovators. What exciting things can we expect from your students, you know, as they come through those sort of higher level programs, and we are building on the innovation piece that's being done in this industry at the moment?
I mean, the students they're learning the basics. They're also learning to think outside the box. They're learning all the products, and they're learning how to put those products together. So, you know, we're seeing just them think different about buildings, right? You know, we're looking at, you know, 5 stories of apartment building over a 2-story precast garage, all coming in at under $100 a square foot, being built in an urban setting, and they're getting it done. They're figuring out how to do it, figuring out the business model to make it work. And again, when you have all that fragmentation in the industry, every group gets their own markup, right? Everybody has their own overhead and their own profit. It doesn't take a genius to figure out why the cost doesn't work. So if you're driving at the cost, and your number one thing you're preaching and teaching every day is this cost has to come down by 40%, 30-40%, you start getting the smart people to think about it. So I would say not only are we teaching them basics, we're getting them to look at all the products and understand IC. We are just like brainwashing them on costs. Costs have to come down, have to come down, have to come down. And that's what's going to get you a job. That's what's going to keep you really viable in the industry. That's what's going to make you successful. Because that's what everybody wants, everybody needs. So that's exciting. You know, you talked about venture capitalists and private equity. Every single day I get a call from a venture capitalist person just wanting into they all see it. The business people, the investors, they see what's happening in our industry. I mean, why do you think so much money was pumped into Katera from day one? Man, this is going to change the world, right? Every day I talk to huge Silicon Valley companies. We work for some of them, and they're jumping into this boat as well. Companies that you would never have thought should be in construction now are all into this because they all see the wave coming. So. Again, it's an incredible opportunity. I can't explain to the counselors with enough excitement to say, you don't understand. Anyone you direct down this path will, if they love it, they'll be so excited and lucrative, and they're really gonna have a career that they love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody in construction ever says, I don't like my job. I mean, they've got hard parts about their job, but they love what they do, and they always have for years and years. And now we're kind of opening it up and saying, you know, you guys have to come see what's going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're totally right. You know, we're seeing a lot of those tech companies that, you know, if you told me that Amazon would have had their own fab shop and you know, producing their own houses, I would have laughed. And now you're looking at the sort of campus that they're building, and yes, it's under wraps, and I'm excited to see what happens there when it actually gets released to the public. But, you know, I'd have never have thought that was even possible a year ago, let alone, you know, a couple of years back. So it's certainly fast moving.
All the Silicon Valley companies are working with, they're all whiteboarding construction, and they're bringing in all of these minds, but they don't have the trade piece.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the tradesmen, I mean, construction is a bottom up. The smartest people in our industry are the people putting it together, right? You can design an electrical panel, but if you don't know how to wire a breaker, you're not very useful, right? And so what we're seeing is the industry being whiteboarded from higher up, missing the trade piece. And I think that's where STONEPILE comes in and says, no, you've got to bring both sides. You've got to bring the whiteboarded, side in with the trade side, along with the codes, along with the inspections, along with the engineering mechanics. You have to marry those together in order to get real innovation that works.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll soon see, your students starting to graduate and come through, start going out into industry. I know you've been working quite closely with some construction companies already. The students have only just entered their first couple of semesters, and we're seeing them come
So
through.
right now, all of our students have jobs. We've placed, even the ones that start first semester are placed immediately. I get calls, once a week from general contractors. You have any students ready? You have any students ready? Because they know that we're producing good students. And so, the last student I placed was at our college for 2 months. He had just started. I said, this guy's doing really well, but he's green. Contractor said, let me take him. I need him. And he's doing well. I follow up with all of our partner contractors. They all say the same things. Man, these guys are doing well. Also, we have all of our students that get placed, they can come back to STONEPILE. There's an online discussion board. Okay. So anytime they have a question on the field, all of us jump on and help them. So they have this, not only are they getting educated, they have this support, and they ask anything and they get suddenly 20, 30 input, man, and they look like the smartest person on the job. Because they have all this incredible input, because our students are contractors and engineers and tradesmen and engineers and architects. And so when they ask a question, they're getting the whole thing. And it really, we really want to support them through the industry. So our contractors know these are incredible students, and let me have more. Just talked to a guy yesterday. I need 3. I said, I got 0. I need more students. I need more students so that we can get them jobs, so that we can get them out there. So that's the desperate call. Come to us. We'll get you educated. We'll get you a job, and you'll put you on an incredible team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was going to say to everyone that's listening, make sure you reach out to Garry at the end and get some of those students. But it sounds like they've all been snapped up already. But no, certainly there's all resources and everything that people can reach out to you guys, and get involved. I think that certainly there will always be more students. We just need to make sure that those people are coming through and really making a change. And it's so exciting to see. I can't wait to hear more. Can't wait to see what happens. As I say, in the next couple of months. I think this is why we do what we do, right? No one person has the answer. No one person knows everything. It's about us all coming together, whether that's in higher education, whether that's in events like this, whether that's outside in the world. And I think we're all ready to start doing that again. But we just need to make sure that those platforms are there for people to have those conversations and take those lessons forward. And I think we'll be a better industry for it, right?
Yes, agreed, 100%.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Garry. I really, really appreciate it. Certainly, we'll see you in January at the event, and also in June at Advancing Prefabrication. But thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Nicole. I had a great time. And again, anyone can find me on the web easily, LinkedIn easily, and I'd love to answer anybody's question.